thought we saw the some symbols of hope and opportunity in our young people at the Youth Summit on Friday, and how they, I thought, glowed with excitement about their lives, the opportunities that were presented by so many career opportunities, educational opportunities, nonprofits. And I just thought that was a great thing, and I want to thank everyone who was involved in that. I don't know if any of the young people that are here were there, but I thought you did a tremendous job of being a part of it, so thank you. Just briefly on the budget, as is required by the charter, by the second, I think it's the first Tuesday, which will be tomorrow, I'm required to submit my budget to this council. You've got to transmit a letter, and no later than tomorrow, the budgets will be in the city clerk's office, and if you can sign them out to ensure that you receive a copy of it, that would be the way that we'd like to proceed. In the backdrop of what is still a state budget that's far from concluded, with a $900 million deficit, and talks of layoffs of thousands, 2,000 to 4,000 people possibly being laid off on a statewide level by the state of Connecticut, and a week after the Mayor Hartford spoke before the State of Connecticut Revenue and Bonding Committee, in effect asking for pretty close to a financial review board with a $50 million deficit. Bridgeport continues to struggle through our challenges, some of which still are part of the budget that we inherited in December. That, I told you at an earlier time, was estimated to be about a $20 million deficit for this fiscal year. We've made some substantial gains in that with your help. Most notably, the refinancing of the bond saved us some $3.5 million, and but allowed us to, or forced us in part to make a commitment that we would have made anyways. That's to make sure that this budget, the one presented to you and that you'll have an opportunity to work on over the next number of weeks, is balanced and balances out some of the hangover, if you will, from the last budget or the deficits. This has to be a fiscally sound budget. The one that we presented, I believe, meets those goals while minimizing spending in any non-discretionary area, especially in view of the fact that this is a year that the people of Bridgeport will be faced, as we all will, with revaluation. The only area where we've seen an increase in discretionary spending is in the area of public safety, where I proposed my continued commitment to adding not only the police class that's in now, but the 2 following classes, so that we can get our police manning levels back up to a more acceptable level. This way, by adding 100 police officers this year. But for that, we've maintained as many cost-saving measures as we could, and are clearly relying on the state to follow through on the commitments made in the governor's budget. I'll touch on a couple of those. And we don't know what's going to happen. I think, as I mentioned to the council and caucus, we don't have a uniform budget system in the state of Connecticut, where all cities and towns do the budgets together after the state budget is in place. We're going ahead based on projections or estimates that are in the governor's budget. Usually those are the most reliable. They can change. They can be changed in our favor or against us. In other words, they could increase items of revenue or cost sharing with the cities and towns, or they can cut them. And I would expect with a $900 million budget, we're going to be doing pretty well if we just hold on to what's been presented by the governor to the General Assembly. In a bright note, or a favorable note, something I think we should talk about, and I thank Tom McCarthy for mentioning we had members of the Bridgeport legislative delegation here, because one thing that they participated on and fought for in Hartford that will be a part of this budget is a thing called Senate Bill 1, which was passed last year. Senate Bill 1, which was sponsored by the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House, and continues to have their support, was the first concrete steps that I've seen by the General Assembly in taking a small step towards some form of regional redistribution of resources. And it also at least acknowledges by action the inherent inequity and the over-reliance of property taxes by cities and towns to fund city government and public education. Senate Bill 1 will, for the first time that I know of, and certainly in this city's recent history, and I'd like to check, I don't know how far back, will cause the mill rate, or the amount of tax that people pay on their automobiles, to be reduced by 10 mils. So the mill rate is presently in the 40s, 42-ish, will, for automobiles, be uniform across the state of Connecticut at 32 mils. So for all of us who own a motor vehicle, we'll see a 10 mil reduction in the amount that we pay starting July 1st in property tax on our automobiles. So out of all the challenges and chaos and financial disarray that you might see on so many fronts, that seems to be a positive spot that we need to have our delegation continue to fight for. With that, as you know, on a very fundamental level, when you lose a percentage of revenue, as we would 10 mils on automobiles, there's a gap in the budget, and the state has gone in this same legislation to address that gap and then some. They've taken a regional approach. They've taken the surrounding towns of Bridgeport, the surrounding towns of New Haven, the surrounding towns of Hartford, I guess Waterbury and other cities, and taken the money that would normally go there and redistributed it disproportionately, but in some degree that disproportion favors communities like Bridgeport. So we'll end up actually with more money than we would have had if we had the full mill rate and not the reduction on automobiles, and still have the benefit of being able to have a tax cut, a 10 mil equivalent of what will be a 10 mil tax cut on automobiles in July and hopefully into the indefinite future. But with that, in our own budget, we've now looked at cost savings and freezes, and as recently as Friday, I announced furloughs for non-union city employees and met with union leaders this afternoon and asked them if they would join us in cost-saving measures in some form or another, whether it be negotiations for reduced wages or other ways that we can meet what is placed in this budget as a line of cost savings or concessions of $5 million. The first step towards that, in lieu of layoffs, and I think we know $5 million in layoffs would be in excess of 100 individuals, 150 individuals, is in early retirements. And we are, as I met with Union today, offering an early retirement program to qualified city employees. And those details were discussed today, and maybe make some modifications on the city side with regards to that in order to begin to address some savings so we continue to keep our costs as low as possible as we go through this budget process. That's a number I think that the $5 million you'll see in the budget. Our Director of Labor Relations has been given full authority and wide discretion in order to negotiate individually with the unions to meet the financial challenge. Certainly there's some elements of that could benefit long-term and short-term depending on how those negotiations go. We want both, but for this budget, we want them for short-term. We've asked them to consider creative ways and ways to partner on meeting the challenge of trying to close their part of this budget. I know the City Council has done in the past. Those members that have served before understand the process. And new members, I know, will participate just as well in making this budget a successful budget for all of us. We have, on a closing note, with that, Wednesday is Bridgeport Day in Hartford. I'd suggest to you that since we have so much in the balance with Hartford, both on the city side budget and on the Board of Ed budget, that we show and force our support for our legislators and for the governor's budget, and allowing them to make the tough decisions while letting them know that those tough decisions, we hope, will not cause even more difficulty on our city, which is facing back-to-back deficit now that we're trying to close in this fiscal year, and a challenge to not only absorb that, but to close what would be $5 million in additional cost savings above and beyond what we're dealing with from last year and other similar situated communities around Connecticut. So Wednesday is Bridgeport Day in Hartford. We'll provide whatever we need to help people get up there and work in partnership with our delegation. Our delegation is going to meet tomorrow morning with me and with the superintendent to ensure that her voice in partnership with mine, I hope with all of ours, is heard, to know that their budget is challenging as well, and that the ECS formula that's been proposed by the state probably doesn't go far enough, and that any help that we can get on that, we have some creative ideas that we'd like to have support for in Hartford, will go a long way to helping to maintain the challenges the Board of Ed has on their side of the budget as well. Mary, if you have something on that, if not, I'd like to. I'm not going to do a Q&A on the budget, so if you have any comments, you can make them, otherwise, okay? If you're not going to do a Q&A on the budget, you're going to ask again if you want. Oh. All right.
Is there going to be transportation provided up to the bridge?
Yeah, I just said that. We will provide transportation up and get that out to constituents. I don't know how it's done in past years, but is John Oaks here? Somebody raised their hand. Who's going to be in charge of it for the coordinating from the administrative side? Looks like Gina raised her hand. All right. So any council members who want to come up, we'd love to be up there, and we'll get details out by email to everyone. Any other matters? Yes, John.
It doesn't work.
I hit it
I
twice.
was there for a long, long time to speak about partnership between your office and the Board of Education, and I am grateful for that. Thank you.
Appreciate it. My ears were listening for a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion second?